Good evening, everyone.
Evening. Thank you for joining us.
So we're not able to stay. And we want to be respectful and pop up and show our faces because you guys know it's a crew time. I'm actually training at 6. They're waiting for me now. Marlene has her portion to do. So we just came up to say, whoever has some more questions, we do acknowledge we read the questions for
I'm going
today.
to interrupt you 1 second, Chanel, if you don't mind. We haven't started the meeting yet. We're just waiting for the rest of, I was actually just going to start at least reading the meeting agenda, but we're waiting for a couple of more alders to join us. But thank you. I appreciate you being here. Misty, I think I'm going to start reading the meeting agenda since it's already after 6 and we have a lot to cover. And whenever Alder Smith joins us and Alder Winter, hopefully it'll be before I finish reading this.
All right, perfect. I know Alder Smith is trying and you do have quorum, so perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet on Thursday, October 1st, 2020 at 6 p.m. via video conference at https://bit.ly/33rpubs and by phone at 646-558-8656, webinar ID 96263233203 to hear and act on the following items. For required password, contact public testimony at newhavenct.gov. We will start with a workshop regarding an update on the voting process and latest developments for voting in Connecticut in the general election in November, and the following items. 1, LM 2020-0360, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing acceptance of continuing Homeland Security grant funds for fiscal year 2020 and approve a memorandum of agreement designating the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments, LCRVCG, as the administrator of these regional funds for the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, DESPP. Item 2, LM 2020-0304, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to apply for, execute, acknowledge, implement, and deliver any and all documents as may be considered necessary or appropriate for the State Historic Preservation Office's grant, supplemental certified local government grant. Item 3, LM 2020-0306, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to apply for, execute, acknowledge, implement, and deliver any and all documents as may be considered necessary or appropriate for the State Historic Preservation Office's grant, Historic Preservation Enhancement Grant. Item 4, LM 2020-0305, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to apply for, execute, acknowledge, implement, and deliver any and all documents as may be considered necessary or appropriate for the State Historic Preservation Office's grant, survey, and planning grant. Item 5, LM 2020-0313, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to apply for, execute, acknowledge, implement, and deliver any and all documents as may be considered necessary or appropriate for the Preservation Connecticut grant, Vibrant Communities Initiative. Item 6, LM 2020-0315, resolution authorizing the mayor to apply for, execute, acknowledge, implement, and deliver any and all documents as may be considered necessary or appropriate for the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Grant, Urban Green and Community Garden Initiative. Per order, Honorable Anna M. Festa, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 Orange Street, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility related accommodations, please call 203-946-7833V or 203-946-8582 TTY TDD. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. If you wish to present testimony at the meeting, you must register in advance at https://bit.ly/33rpubs or by calling 203-946-7934 before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Public can view the meeting at https://bit.ly/33rpubs or listen by phone at 646-558-8656. Webinar ID 962-6323-3203. For the required password, contact public testimony at newhavenct.gov. At this time, I will have my committee introduce themselves, beginning with my vice chair, Alder DeCola.
Sal DeCola, Ward 18.
Alder Antunes.
Gerald Antunes, Ward 12.
Alder Roth.
Abby Roth, Ward 7.
Alder Winter.
Stephen Winter, Ward 21.
Alder Singh. Unmute.
Sorry, Campton Singh, Ward 5.
And Alder Smith. Was she able to join? Okay. Okay, we will begin with the workshop regarding an update. I know this is the third workshop that we're holding, but because this is such a challenging election with a lot of changes, it's almost as if we need to retrain ourselves on how to vote and pretend it is the first time that we're voting. So I appreciate the registrar's office being here to answer any questions, as well as maybe give us a quick explanation of any changes that were made from last month when we met, and what anticipations there are for the election. The city clerk is unable to make it tonight. Tomorrow is the beginning of their mailing of the ballots, so they're a little preoccupied. So Chanel, the floor is yours. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys again. I was stating before, we actually passed our limit to be up here because I am already in meetings as we speak. So I really have to go. And so does Marlene. She's working on another project again. Let's go out tomorrow. So we have to uphold our end of the bargain with that. We have submitted our answers to the questions that were sent to us prior. We do acknowledge that we received questions today, 2 sets of questions, one about an hour ago, one about this morning. We will get to those early to our convenience as possible. And thank you guys for your work, and that's what we come up here to say. We still want to respect the process CSAP.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just reviewing even question number 1 that was sent about a link to home pages to find your polling place. Is there a link to find your polling place? Not are you registered, but where you actually go to vote?
So if you're registered, it will let you know. But again, all those questions, I just resubmit the question and we'll answer them. We really have to go. Sorry.
Okay, it was just for clarification on that one, because it says find your polling place, but the answer says, are you registered? So just want to make sure that we guide folks to the correct link so there's no confusion on where their polling place is.
Yep, if you check your registry, if you are registered, it shows you your polling location with the address.
Great. Okay, appreciate that clarification.
All right, with you guys, and you guys have a lovely night. And once we get we go over the question, sorry. I'm hearing another conversation out there that I really have to. Once we give you the answers, we'll submit them. And if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to submit those as well. And if you're clear on anything, again, just send those in as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
At this time, I know that we have committee members that have questions, additional questions and comments. So I will start with the alders. If you have any concerns, comments, etc., here's your opportunity to voice them and hopefully get answers to some of the questions. So we can start with Alder Antunes. Do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Alder Roth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess one procedural question, was Christine Josie Bartlett going to be able to join from the state?
She had confirmed, but I don't see her on. So hopefully she didn't have a conflict with another meeting, which was also in question. And hopefully she'll join before we complete our workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I do have, I mean, as you said, this is and not only sort of an extremely important election, just given the stakes in it, but it's also very complicated between COVID, between the new process for absentee ballots, which is changing even this week with something happening at the state legislature. And so I do think there are lots of questions to be answered, both from the city clerk's office and the registrar's office. I appreciate that they have other obligations tonight, but I feel strongly that we have to find a way to get very clear answers. I did not find the answers to our questions we submitted that we received from the registrar's office to sort of address the questions. I mean, one, we had a question last month about how many people are needed to work at the polls on election day and how many are signed up, how many more are still needed. And they need 600, but it says it's still an ongoing process, but we have no details on how many more they need. And so for us to be most helpful in sort of getting the word out to others and trying to encourage volunteers, if we have no idea what that number is, I find that concerning. And a month ago, we didn't have that number, and we still don't have that number. And election day registration, they say they hope to have everything set up by Friday, the end of the day on Friday, October 30th, so that they can go run through it the day before the election. That also makes me very nervous. We have a history, unfortunately, in the city of having a lot of confusion on election day registration, and to save until the day before election day registration to run through it, I find really concerning. And so I really hope we have an opportunity to have a true conversation with both the registrar's office and the city clerk's office. And just to give one example, the city clerk's office, you know, I have heard from a lot of constituents recently, like in the past day or two, who knew about this, saying they have a very low number of absentee ballots that New Haven shows have been recorded with the Secretary of State's with the Secretary of State's office from New Haven. But yet, sort of, it sounds like from our own office, a lot have been received. And so what is the disconnect? Why have those kind of not been registered with the state? And do they need help? And can we be helpful in getting volunteers? I know of a lot of people who want to volunteer to help. And so
Alder Roth, I'm going to interrupt you 1 second because I think I have an update to that very question that just came my way.
Thank you.
Supposedly we do have 9 people working in the city clerk's office to help with the ballots. Also, it seems that we have our own internal system for registering these ballots because the state system is extremely slow, and that we have 5,000 ballots ready to go once the ballots arrive. My understanding is the ballots haven't even arrived yet. So hopefully they'll be there tomorrow when it's time to mail them, or at least the day after. So that's a question also possibly for the city clerk to answer, is have the ballots even been delivered for mailing? So we are using our own internal system that has 5,000 ready to go. Hopefully that helps somewhat.
Yeah, I guess it helps. I guess I'm curious, like, I assume that's fine to use our own system, and like we alert the state as to that number, just independently. Yeah, so I mean, I do have, again, I have a whole set of questions, but I don't know if just sort of reading through my questions makes sense when the folks aren't here to answer it. I know we received from the executive director of Common Cause right before this meeting, I thought, a very helpful letter laying out a lot of questions that I've heard from a number of people in the past few weeks. And I think sort of submitting that as well to the city clerk and registrar's office might help
Point of
them in
order,
just
Madam Chair.
understanding. Excuse me?
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes.
If the people are not here to answer the questions, can our colleagues simply resubmit them? And that way we won't hold these other folks on that are waiting to testify?
Yes, I just got a message from the representative from the Secretary of State office, and she's trying to get on. So I was hoping to give her a couple of minutes to do that. You know,
I just have one final point, Madam Chair.
go ahead.
I appreciate that there's people waiting. I do think just submitting questions and getting written answers is not always going to help. I actually think we may need an additional conversation so that we can have dialogue back and forth. I think this is a really important election and a really complicated election. And just seeing the disconnect on our questions and answers in this go around, I think it would actually be more efficient if we planned perhaps another day to have 45 minutes for a back and forth conversation, just to make sure kind of the questions that the public is raising with us are answered, that we can get information out to the public and be most helpful. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Roth. Maybe at this time, what we could do is go through these questions and at least give the public the answers that we did receive from the two offices. So this is actually from the Registrar of Voters office. The first question was the one that I addressed to Ms. Evans earlier regarding what link people are to go on to find their polling places. So it seems like if you do click where you are registered, it will give you your polling location. Here it also says, please provide an update on Election Day registration and what the final plan is, including if we will have one or two locations, what those locations are, how the process will work, and how you are sharing information about where the location is. And the answer from the registrar's office is, we are using City Hall as our EDR site, and our website will be updated with the necessary information for people who need to register on Election Day. Chanel and I have met with IT and Fusco management to discuss setup for meeting rooms. 1 and 2, configuration of tables, chairs, computers, and printers. Chris and Rob are checking with the state to verify we have received the additional IP addresses from them. We are hopeful the setup will be completed by COB on Friday, 10/30/2020. This will allow us to review the setup and test applications first thing Monday morning, 11/2/2020. We are working with Fusco on social distance spacing, materials, and signage, and our office will be providing the necessary PPE. The next question is, how many people are needed to work the polls, including EDR on Election Day? As of October 1st, how many people have signed up to work? How many poll workers are still needed? We anticipate hiring approximately 600 workers for the November election, and it is still an ongoing process. Next question was, what is the parking plan for 200 Orange Street on Election Day? E.g., where will spaces be reserved and how many? There likely will be both people driving there to drop off absentee ballots and people driving to vote at a typically high volume polling place. This recent NPR story references congestion when drop box in-person voters all gathering in the same spot. And it's the NPR Ohio's limit on ballot drop boxes leads to allegations of voter suppression. If anyone is interested in going to npr.org. The answer to the question was, we are planning on 15 parking meter bags for electors to utilize when casting their vote. Also signage stating that spaces are for electors who are voting and not for long-term parking. The drop box is exactly that. Drop off your ballot and move on. Those were the questions submitted and answered by the registrar's office. Regarding EDR, my understanding is the Secretary of State is allowing the city until October 10th to submit a second location if they so choose. And that is also information that I just received. Alder Roth, you mentioned the common cause for Connecticut and their concerns. Hey, I'm just going to interrupt 1 second. Hey, Misty, do you mind sending Christine the code? Christine Bartlett, Josie, the code for tonight's meeting? If you don't mind, thank you.
Not a problem. I'll get it to her right now.
Thank you. And I am going to read this on the record. So this is comments for city service and environmental policy meeting 10-1 workshop on the voting process and latest developments for voting in Connecticut. As you all know, we are in challenging times with a global pandemic that is impacting virtually every aspect of our lives, including our elections. It is very important to have conversations about voting policy, both at a state and local level, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the discussion. I am the executive director of Common Cause in Connecticut. Common Cause is a nonpartisan, nonprofit citizens lobby that has worked to improve the way Connecticut's government operates since 1971. We have 2 million members nationwide and more than 15,000 members and activists in Connecticut. Common Cause in Connecticut has a long history of working to increase transparency in government and advocating for the removal of the corrosive influence of special interest money in government and politics and election reform. The state is very engaged in ramping up for our upcoming election. And in fact, the House of Representatives in special session yesterday, Wednesday, passed HB 2005 AAC, an act concerning a municipal election monitor at the 2020 state election and processing of absentee ballots for the 2020 state election by overwhelming majority to address anticipated increases in absentee ballots coming into the cities and towns. Election officials will be impacted, but should have additional time to process ballots, 4 days to start processing before election day, which will help with some of the volume. If it is being taken up in the Senate special session today, Thursday. This bill isn't ideal, and I will say that we support early voting of at least a week to give voters additional time to vote and election officials additional time to process the ballots. Common Cause has been working on election reform for the past 50 years around the country and are very proud of the successes, especially in Connecticut, where I have lived virtually my entire life, most of that time in New Haven. The discussion here must address how absentee ballots will be processed in the upcoming election and how both the registrar and clerk's offices are preparing. It is disappointing to learn that the city missed the deadline for applying for an additional election day registration site. As someone who worked very hard to pass EDR in Connecticut and was on site at City Hall in 2018, it was disappointing to witness people wait for many hours online to register and vote in a situation where there were inadequate staff to process the numbers of eager voters. At least one additional EDR site would hopefully alleviate some of that bottleneck. In addition, it has come to my attention that there are now 4 ballot boxes in New Haven, which is great, but they are clustered at one location near City Hall. This defeats the purpose of providing accessibility for voters, and I will say is unacceptable. One ballot box at City Hall is adequate. Additional ballot boxes should be in neighborhoods where people have transportation challenges or in areas where there is a large population of seniors. I will add that it is essential for voter confidence that information about absentee ballot requests be uploaded into the state database. I see very few reported from New Haven at this point, under 400 requests. Voting by mail is new to many people. I cast my first AB in the August primary, and we need to make sure that voters know that they are doing it securely. We are very interested in your voter education plans. It is crucial that voters know where their polling place is, particularly if it has changed for any reason. And since many more people will be casting their ballot by mail, it is critical that they understand the process. It is secure and works remarkably well around the nation for many years, but it is not well understood in Connecticut, where we have a history of restricting ABs. Thank you for all the reaching out you are doing regarding the process, which this year is so important. No one should have to choose between their health and casting their vote. Sherry Quickmeyer, Executive Director, Common Cause in Connecticut, 860-539-6846. I just want to enter that for the record for this workshop. Misty, has Christine joined us?
No, I am not seeing her in yet.
Okay, so you know what, at this point, I think it's probably best that we move on and possibly consider having a special meeting to address some of these very valid concerns when it comes down to voting this year for the November 3rd election. As I mentioned earlier, it is a challenging year on so many levels. And if we don't address these accurately, we may run into, hopefully not, but we may run into some problems. Are there any questions from the committee at this time regarding the workshop? Just raise your hand. I can see y'all. Go ahead, Alder Roth.
I think there may be some hands raised among attendees.
Alder Winter, I see your hand up. Did you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just strongly second the idea of having a special meeting. We were promised at our last meeting from the registrar's office a plan for Election Day registration. She said she expected to have that ready by the end of September. It's now October 1st, and we got a couple sentences about plans for planning Election Day registration, but we still don't have a plan for that. And given our recent history, we need to have a clearly articulated plan for that. So I think that we sent questions, we got some answers, but there's still a lot that has not been answered. And I think that it's only appropriate, given how many questions people have about a normal election, that this election, with the presidency and our democratic system at stake during a pandemic, that we really do need to have clarity on this for the public's sake. And then I think from the clerk's office, we should know when the ballots are arriving. We should understand why all 4 ballot drop boxes are positioned around 200 Orange Street. And we should know how changes to the laws around absentee voting will affect that office's operations ahead of the election. So I do think that there are a lot of huge and important questions that are unanswered. And then to the point that we began with, I think we ought to have a link on the website that says, are you confused about where your polling location is? Click here, just like we have an Are You Registered link, to make it really clear, because half of the requests I get are people saying, where do we vote this year? Because every year folks in my ward vote at different polling locations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Winter. I do see some hands that are up from the public that I will address. If we could let Lydia Bornick, John Martin in, that would be great. Okay, I see John. Mr. John Martin, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, thank you, Alder Roth and Alder Winter, for your comments. I mean, I have a bunch to say, but there's no one to say it to, I suppose, which is, I think, the most frustrating point that I would like to make, which is, yeah, this is
your name and address for the record, Mr.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. John Martin, address is 93 Pearl Street in New Haven. So I'm also a ward chair for my ward. And so voting is something, and the way we vote and the process around that is really important to a lot of folks that I talk to. And I'm getting people come up to me all over the place, just asking me what's going on and specific questions. And so this is just a point to make that people are really care about this. This is not a normal time, and people, just normal people, are thinking about this, not just people who have to think about it, like you all and the registrar and city clerk. And so I think I'd just like to echo the points made. I mean, I think the Common Cause letter, I appreciate you, Madam Chair, for reading that. I think was astute and echoes a lot of the points. And yeah, I think I would echo also that it would be nice to have a special meeting where the people that we need to talk to and we need to ask questions to are here to answer them. Because yeah, it's really important. Like, why are there multiple drop boxes in front of City Hall and not in other places around town? Specifically for my ward that votes at 200 Orange. Like, I'm worried for like all of my constituents and all the Ross constituents who are going to be like waiting in line while people are like walking by them to throw stuff in the drop box. Like, there's congestion problems. I can see 200 Orange being a real problem, and so lots of concerns around that. And then of course just like the safety of the election for all those that vote. So I think I'll stop there, but thank you for allowing me to speak for a moment. And looking forward to another follow-up meeting where the city clerk and the registrar and some folks from the state are present. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Martin. I'll move on now to Lydia. Lydia, if you can unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record and then proceed. Thank you.
Yes, Lydia Bornick, 100 York Street, apartment 10N, New Haven. Thank you, Alder Festa and Alders, for allowing me to participate. I want to make a big, broad statement to begin. Everything is new and old again, but one of the lessons I am finding from this is that I do not know the role of the city clerk, the registrar, and who they are accountable to. I assume they're accountable to the voters, but it appears to me, I will call myself the lay person in this, that I don't feel that the information flow has been really significant. And many, many people are asking the same questions that John talked about and that others must talk about. So I just want to ask for the future, because I don't see that this is possible now, if we could understand that these two elected positions, I don't know who they report to and who I could ask for some answers about responsibility. Moving on, I have some questions about this absentee ballot drop box also. I don't want to keep repeating it, but I know my constituents who vote at Troop, Ward 7, we vote at Troop, are very confused that where the drop boxes are, where the ballots are, and we're trying very hard to educate them. So I hope we get some more information officially from the city clerk or the registrar to make people really feel comfortable, because I am finding more and more people are planning to vote in person, so that they are now quadruply confused as to how that process goes and how comfortable they are. I vote at Troop School, and I have a question. I would like to know the actual setup of the physical room at Troop. Up until now, we vote in the outer hallway, and it's not a huge space, but I'm making a presumption because I'm not sure school is open or not. Are we moving to the gym? Are we staying in the same space? Are people going to be posted outside to help us socially distance around Bear Street? However the process is, I think those are things that we would appreciate knowing. So I think that's most of my questions. I don't want to keep repeating. I want to say I appreciate and understand how difficult this is for the city clerk and for the registrars. And I know that the community would like to offer them help and to support them and to let them know that we care about them and that we all want this to be successful. So we want to leave the impression that this is not a personal attack on anyone or any office, but that I think the voters have a right to know how things are going to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think you brought up some very valid points, particularly that people do care. And that's a good thing, that we care about voting and who our elected officials are. I do see that Christine Bartlett Josie has joined us. Maybe she could just give us an update on the Secretary of State side of things, and maybe hopefully answer some of our questions as well. Christine, are you there? I see her.
Mute
There you are.
and start video. Sorry. Yeah. I was trying to get on. Everything was sent to my phone instead of my computer, and I was a little off. So I don't know what I've missed. So I don't know. As the registrar of voters on, is the city clerk on?
No, unfortunately, the registrar came on for a couple of minutes, but had to leave for some training, and the city clerk is preparing for the mail out of ballots that is supposed to begin tomorrow. So the major questions were the drop boxes and how to address those. They're all in the city hall area. Is that something that the state determined or something that the city determined?
The city clerk and the city determined where the drop boxes were, and we asked that they be accessible to people. Other places have put them in libraries. For example, Hamden has one at the center. They distributed around Hamden, right? This was a decision. It was a local decision. Because again, this Secretary of State's office doesn't know, all 169 towns. We didn't want to come and say we left it up to the local elected officials to decide what would be most effective. I was kind of surprised to know that all 4 of them are around City Hall. I thought they would be distributed library, in Westville, library, Dixwell. So that was a total local decision. So, yeah.
So something else that was brought to our attention is that the city is using their own internal system to register these ballots because the state one is too slow. So do you know how those are being registered? They're being registered internally. So how are they being registered to the state? If that made any sense.
They're supposed to upload. Yeah, I know exactly what, because that's the question I asked the city clerk last week. Why are you not using the Secretary of State's website? So because all this is new, there was extra, technology-wise bandwidth added. But I think our city clerk was very comfortable using the system that they've been using. So what they're supposed to do is upload all that information to the system, which is what the Secretary of State's office uses, and all the registrar voted, all the town clerks have those. So I was a little taken aback by that, but I need to check in today. We had a meeting, and I need to check in. From what I gathered, all the information was uploaded into the state system. But again, our city clerk was very comfortable using the system that they used. We were made aware when things were slow and technology was added, or whatever you call it, somebody who's technical would know the bandwidth of the system, more whatever was added so that it wasn't slow, and it would be, because we know this is very different. Some towns, we were reporting some towns, they would normally get, one town which normally gets 600 ABs has 2,000 right now. So, and they use the system. So we were aware that this is unprecedented. So we've done everything, issued all the monies to all the cities. So encouraging the city clerks and the registrar of voters to hire. One of the things we waited for New Haven from the registrar of voters is where EDR is going to be, and we've not gotten that yet. So, there's been pressure put on. I've called all my other towns, been calling my towns, and ensuring that, we've been promised, and they know this is very different. So hopefully what needs to be done will be done.
So are you aware that the
I mean,
registrar's
they're
office,
elected officials. There's so much.
sorry, go ahead.
I couldn't hear you, Anna.
Are you aware that the
I didn't
registrar,
hear you. You said, are you aware?
that the registrar of voters received a letter extending the decision to place a second EDR? They have until October 10th.
Yeah. They have time to place a second EDR location. Yes, everybody had time to do what was needed to do for this election. They've been on calls and on emails since immediately when the pandemic started. So they've been on calls and emails since January, actually, because we knew 2020 was going to be a very different election, period. And since COVID, it's been even heightened. So we're on weekly calls, and they're getting constant emails from the Secretary of State's office, from Ted Bromley, who's in charge of the elections division. So whatever is needed, we've made, there's extra staffs hired. I was hired. There are extra people hired to ensure that things get done. It's just that sometimes you have in other towns, people are more, how would I say, agreeable. They're moving faster and working harder and hiring, and we're getting answers. In some towns, people are not answering appropriately. Again, they're elected officials. There's so much you can do to get them, We've stressed how important it is. Money was funded, everybody was funded, people, they have money. Some towns have asked, you even asked one time, where's the money? And I simply said, it's been distributed. We know that. It's that you have to access it, whether it's your purchasing department, whatever department the money comes into, but both the registrar of voters and the city clerk's office been allocated funds to deal with whatever extra staffing they need, period.
Well, I appreciate you being on the call.
Okay.
I'm actually going to move on from the workshop because we have a heavy agenda. We may be having a special meeting, and hopefully you'll be available with the city clerk and the registrar. We mentioned earlier that this is a very challenging election and we want it to run smoothly for all the right reasons.
Yes.
So I do see one additional hand that is up from the public, and then we're going to move on with the rest of our agenda. I appreciate you, Christine, being on. So it looks like, and I'm going to destroy this name, and my apologies ahead of time, Rabia Merotra.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
I wanted to ask
State your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, my name is Rabia Merotra. My address is 186 Edward Street. My question was, where would the second location for EDR be? Like, are we allowed to know what locations are being considered and how it will be decided?
So that is the $1 million question. That is actually what we are waiting to hear back from the registrar's office. If there will be a second location, where that location is, and how will word get out so people are notified of where that location is. So stay tuned.
Are citizens allowed to give input? Like, how can I maybe suggest a location?
You know what? Suggestions can be made anytime from the public. And I'm going to say yes, I would contact the registrar's office with any suggestions regarding EDR locations.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, again, thank you, Christine, for joining us, and we'll keep you updated if we do have another workshop to address these questions. Thanks again, Christine.
And I will also look into addressing these questions with with the registrar of voters immediately tomorrow.
Perfect, thank you. That is greatly appreciated. Oops, before we go on, sorry, there is a couple more hands up. Aaron Good. State your name and address for the record, please, followed by Alder Winter. Aaron, are you there?
Hello?
Hi,
Hello?
there you are. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Aaron Good, 45 William Street, New Haven. I don't know if this helps to address the previous question, but I believe that the second EDR location that was being looked at is Metropolitan Business Academy on Water Street. I don't know if there are other contenders for a second EDR location, but I think that's the one that has had the most discussion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, if it's okay, I had a few other small comments and suggestions, Madam Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to repeat what's in my written comments that I submitted, but I do just want to emphasize a few key points that have already been, I think, touched on for the most part. We do really need to have a robust voter education effort because of all the new things that are happening due to COVID. I'm not really seeing that yet. People in the community are very confused and worried about whether their votes will be counted. There's a lot of disinformation just out there in the media ecosystem. A lot of people I'm hearing from never got the absentee ballots that they requested for the primary. So they're very concerned about that. I'm getting a ton of questions about whether if you fill out an application for a ballot, but it doesn't come back, what should you do then? Can you cancel your absentee ballot request? Things of that nature are really weighing heavily on people's minds. And we also need to make sure that there's a lot more information on the city's website, make sure that there are broken links that are fixed. Last night there was a link to the absentee ballot application that was not working. That's a problem. We need to put information on the website that tells voters how they can track their absentee ballots. We need to make sure that voters know about the drop boxes. People who did participate in the primary probably do know about the drop boxes, but we have a lot of unaffiliated voters in New Haven who didn't vote in the primary, and they don't know about the drop boxes and the locations of the drop boxes. Another thing that people may not know is that they can put their absentee ballot applications in the drop boxes as well as their ballots. And there's not good signage on any of our 4 boxes saying, yes, you can use this for your application as well as your ballot. And that information is not on the website either. We do have an opportunity for voter education with the postcards that are going to be sent to all of our voters in the next 2 weeks. We should use that opportunity to give people information about all of their voting options, whether that's in person or by absentee. I mean, that's something that goes out to every registered voter. So we should take advantage of that opportunity to let voters know that they have a lot of options, that they can choose what is best for them. The League of Women Voters that I'm part of, we have a very good primer that answers a lot of these types of questions that we just came out with. That would be like a really good basis for putting information on the city's website, both the clerk's site and the registrar's site. Just a couple of other things. I would really like to know how many mail ballots were disqualified in the primary for whatever reason. People not signing the envelope or for other reasons. I mean, we heard in previous testimony from the city clerk, Mike Smart, that there were up to 10% of absentee ballots were disqualified in some elections. That's a very high number. I hope it was not that high for the primary, but I would like to know if ballots are being disqualified, why are they being disqualified, and what education do we need to do to make sure that we reduce that number on November 3rd. The Dropbox issue, that's already, we've gone over that. They should not all be at the same location. That does not serve voters. I understand the concerns about favoring certain neighborhoods over others and trying to avoid that. But the fact is that no other municipality in the entire state is doing what we're doing and having all 4 drop boxes within 50 yards of the town clerk's office. It just doesn't make sense. Second EDR location, even before COVID, having a second EDR location was a good idea, but especially now that we want to keep people as socially distant as possible, it's really essential. I don't understand why we didn't meet the deadline for setting that up. If we can still do it and work with the Secretary of the State on that, we should. So in conclusion, I want to associate myself with the comments by Sherry Quickmeyer from Common Cause, who's been working on voting issues for decades. She knows what she's talking about. And I do want to thank everyone on this committee and also, in the clerk's office and the registrar's office who are working hard to make sure we have a successful election. That is very much appreciated, but I do think we need another hearing to figure out some of the outstanding issues that have been raised on this call. So thank you very much, Madam Chair and other committee members.
Thank you for your comments. They are appreciated, and we will let you know about hopefully getting you some of these answers. And you make some very valid points, and we do have opportunities here to address them, such as the postcards and educating voters. As far as the second EDR location, they do have until October 10th to figure out that second location and whether to proceed with it. Alder Winter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Ms. Bartlett Josie. Is it possible to get, if the concern is that we couldn't disperse the drop boxes enough, is it possible to get additional drop boxes beyond the 4? Like if we had one more, we could put one at City Hall and then one at each library, for example.
All drop boxes have been distributed.
Okay.
So and again, it's very local, right? So we left it up to the cities and towns to request what they felt was necessary. So for us, all the large cities, we were like, you guys get, more, because obviously based on population and voters. So it's really a very local decision to make where the drop boxes went, how many drop boxes you were requesting. We could suggest, we cannot, force folks. I will request, and I will, after today's meeting, I asked about that, but all drop boxes were ordered and distributed. And there are no drop boxes sitting in any warehouse anywhere in the state. They've all been distributed.
Have other cities, do you know how many Hartford and Bridgeport received?
I don't, but I could find out. Hartford and Bridgeport are not in my CD, but I will find out. I'm gonna follow up on a lot of those questions that came up on this call. Every single thing, all the questions, all the concerns. I probably will physically go down into the offices tomorrow, as I have visited many other of the towns. So I will try and get all these answers.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
He is frozen.
Okay. Thank you, Alder Winter, and thank you, Christine, for checking in on these concerns. At this time, we will move on to our first agenda item. So if we can have the testifiers, the presenters. Are they on?
Yep, I should be on.
Yep, I see Mr. Fontana and Ms. Wallace. Okay, so the first item is a memorandum of agreement designating the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments. Is that you?
Yep.
Rick? Okay, go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, good evening. Rick Fontana, Director of Emergency Management, 66 Putting Green Lane, Orange, Connecticut. Good evening, alders, and thank you for the opportunity for myself and Kayla to talk tonight about the federal fiscal year 2020. This is a state Homeland Security grant. It's a regional grant. It's actually what we call a memorandum of agreement. And what this does is this is actually done annually, and it is regional funding, and it allows the fiduciary, which would be the Connecticut, it's the Lower River Valley Council of Governments, to serve as the fiduciary for the entire region. The region, as you know, makes up 30 towns, which is part of Region 2. This grant actually covers $382,000, $382,156 for regional funding. And then there's also an addition of $65,000, and that covers the regional bomb squad, which is the New Haven Police Department, or the hazardous devices unit. So this is at no cost to the city of New Haven whatsoever. It provides custodial ownership of equipment that we could, in fact, take on as the city, and then if anything needs to be done as a custodial owner, there's no cost to the city of New Haven to do that. It would almost be like we garage it and use it as needed. Again, this is everything is voted on by the REPT. That's the Regional Emergency Planning Team. That is comprised of the 30 mayors and first selectmen from those 30 towns or their designee. So again, this is a regional memorandum of agreement that just allows the Lower Connecticut River Council of Governments act as the fiduciary for all 30 towns.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wallace, did you want to add anything?
I think Rick did a pretty great job. I'm
So
sure he has.
state your, sorry, excuse me.
Oh, sorry,
State your name
sure.
and address for the record, please.
Yes, Kayla Wallace, 20 Alden Street, New Haven. And I think Rick has pretty much covered it. He certainly could give you examples of what the money has been utilized for before as well.
Do you want to go ahead and give us some examples of where the money has been used?
Yeah, sure. So this has really been, we're talking, shortly after 9/11, the REPT, the Regional Emergency Planning Team, and the Steering Committee started developing plans, and it was based on the needs and again, this is looked at as a region as a whole. New Haven, acting as the largest municipality, has done a phenomenal job in managing funds for the bomb team. And I'm talking about every piece of equipment that they use if they're put into a position. We've brought in vehicles. We actually, I don't know if you could, sure that you've seen our vehicle that is used in any type of a SWAT operation. It's a Lenco. It actually came into the city, I believe, in 2009. It's gotten a lot of work. Our bomb vehicles as well. We did bring in. I want to use, for example, some of the bigger ticketed items. We brought in a burn trailer in 2009, which allows the entire region to utilize a burn trailer that costs about $400,000. The city of New Haven actually serves as the overseeing agency, and it goes from town to town. It provides firefighters with live fire training. We in New Haven get a little bit more live fire training than most of the region, so we don't use it a lot in the city of New Haven. But it does go out, and we work really closely with all of the other 29 mayors and first selectmen to ensure that that piece of equipment is fully operational with a yearly maintenance agreement. Those are some of the bigger ticketed items. We've brought in satellite communications for all of the other 29 municipalities, which was funded through a regional grant. A lot of signage that we use during storms. A lot of equipment just is literally funded and maintained through that grant. And anytime that we have a piece of equipment that needs any additional training, we use it for all types of training as well. So again, this has been a great grant, not just for the city of New Haven, but all 30 municipalities sign the same memorandum of agreement, just allowing, as I said, River Valley Council of Governments to serve as that fiduciary. And they manage all the money. It's hands off for us. It's really just more of an agreement. I hope, and again, we can go on equipment, but I think.
No, that was perfect. At least it gave us an idea of where this is being utilized. At this time, I will open it up to the committee for any questions, beginning with my vice chair, Alder DeCola. Do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Alder Antunes. Alder Antunes, you're on mute.
On my screen, he's frozen. Not sure. He is yours.
Oh, okay. I will go to Alder Roth. Any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for walking us through that, all the details.
Alder Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Alder Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Alder Smith. Alder Antunes, any questions?
No questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both for.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Madam Chair, I think you're on mute now.
I was. But thank you to Rick and Ms. Wallace for those explanations. We will now move on to the next item is city plan here. Actually, it's the next few items. So you are on for item 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have Ms. Woods, Keith Lawrence, and Maya Vardy. Is that correct? And if each one of you could state your name and address for the record and then proceed, that would be great.
Great. My name is Aisha Woods. I'm Director of City Plan. My address is 42 Canner Street, New Haven.
Good afternoon, or sorry, good evening. My name is Keith Lawrence. I'm Assistant Director of Comprehensive Planning and City Plan. My address is 146 Orange Avenue, Milford.
Hi, Maya Vardy. I'm a planner at City Plan. My address is 111 Park Street, New Haven.
Thank you. Go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, I'd like to just note that 3 of the items are related to one project. So the 3 items related that are grants requested from SHPO, we can talk about in one, just in one set, if that's okay, just in the interest of time.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Okay, great. So the first, and I believe it's the first 3 items, right? I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda right before me, but the first 3 items are concerning a city property at 198 River Street, the former Bigelow Boiler Complex. This is really the sort of heart of the River Street Historic District. Over time, we've lost a number of buildings in that district, and so this is really the main anchor point. It has deteriorated over the past 20 or so years, and then we had actually initiated this grant process prior to the last Hurricane Isaias, during which the River Street buildings received some additional damage. So we're hopeful that we will receive this grant money. And the purpose of the grant money is to do an adaptive reuse planning study. So we would, lump the funds together in order to elaborate on some of the structural assessment work that we've commissioned already. And then also to do an adaptive reuse plan for that city asset in the long run. So that's the purpose of the grant. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I will open it up to my committee for questions. Now, before I do, you mentioned that the amount will be lumped together. So there's 20,000 plus 20,000. Is this lumped for one study, one person conducting the study? Because it looks like each one has it as listed as in the itemized section. So can you just clarify that?
So that would, we just applied for the maximum amount of both grants of the funding available, and then it might be divided between more scope that's specific to a structural engineer and then some scope to support the planning process. But there's some flexibility in both the grants.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I will open it up to the committee. Alder DeCola, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Ms. Wood, are we going to be able to save that building because the roof caved in? Are we going to be able to save it? It is a great building, great character to River Street. And I'm just wondering, is this a project that might not happen?
That is a good question and a very tough question. We've been working with structural engineers, both the on-call engineer for the building department, as well as a outside engineer who specializes in historic preservation. And they've worked together to put together three different, a couple different scenarios. So one is, a complete restoration, which obviously is, has a very high price tag attached to it. And then they've also prepared a interim stabilization scenario where the building wouldn't necessarily be buttoned up, but it would be sort of structurally stabilized. And the important part is getting a roof over it so it's not, doesn't sustain further damage. And so that would enable, that would buy some time to do, an adaptive reuse process. So we'll have, this will have to be a decision that will have to be made, by the city team, because there are some life safety concerns, obviously, and also some, financial concerns in terms of, how much we can put into it to stabilize it.
Oh, thank you. And then by saving this building, will it enhance the possibility of really developing that area by saving this building? Does it enhance the growth of that area? Because it's sad right now that it's a lot of open land. I know we had to do a lot of mitigation of brownfields, but saving this building, will it enhance the future of growth and possible tax-based revenue from that area?
In my view, it will, and it's for the following reasons. Because it is currently, it has a national register status, some of the benefits, some of the tax credit benefits associated with that, are available to potential developers. Also, because it's in an opportunity zone, those benefits are, they're increased, they're amplified. So right now there are, some financial incentives that would be available to any developer in that district. It also, there's some floodplain variances that are available because the property is not only it's historic and contaminated, but it's also in a floodplain. So we feel like if we can solve this one, we can solve like the most, it's one of the most challenging sites in the city, actually. And so that's why we felt it was really worthwhile to go after these grants.
Well, thank you. So you're saying item 2, 3, and 4 can be moved as one, even though they're all individually written? I'm just trying to ask what you're saying they're together, because I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna vote on them. Do we vote on them individually, or do we group the 3 together if they're all the same? Just asking a question for voting purposes.
Correct. So the two, I think I misspoke and I referenced 3. It's actually, there's 2 grants for SHPO, and those could be voted on together, but I would just mention, the item numbers separately, just so it's clear.
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure. So when we're voting later on that we're doing it correctly so we don't make a mistake. That's all. Well, thank you. I'm done, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alder DeCola. Just to clarify that, these are 2 separate grants that you applied for. So is it best to vote separately or together, since it's 2 separate grants?
I'll leave the actual voting part. I was just more thinking about our presentation could be done together, since the content is the same, but City Plan Commission voted on them as separate. They mentioned both of the names or both of the item numbers and then voted on it.
Okay, but they are 2 separate grants.
They're 2 separate items. Yeah, 2 separate grants.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Alder Antunes, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. We're kind of in a unique position. Thank you, Madam Chair. And that we have to really represent not only the constituents, but the city in these issues. Can you explain to us the tax issues there? It seems we just give away a lot of money to entities that come in town and put the tax burden onto our residents. Explain to me what their tax benefits are going to be or could be.
Sure. So what I'm really talking about is there are federal tax credit programs and there are state tax credit programs. So it would not be any kind of city tax benefit. It's a program programs that are specific to historic preservation. So it enables property owners, the state program, properties owners anywhere in Connecticut are able to apply for that and it incentivizes historic preservation. And then the federal tax credit is similar. The way they actually work is a little bit different, but it wouldn't be, those are benefits that wouldn't come from the city budget. They're just programs that are enabled by the fact that it is a National Register historic district. So as long as it maintains that status, then anybody in that area can apply for those state and federal programs.
So you say it has no effects on our tax base?
Well, if the area were to be redeveloped, that would definitely have a positive tax benefit. It would have a positive benefit to the city taxes, but the programs that I'm referring to are state and federal programs. So they wouldn't be getting like a tax abatement or tax deferral that impacts the city in any way. It would be, it's a program that's reimbursed at the federal and the state level.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Alder Antunes. Alder Roth, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks so much for the presentation and I think it's a good thing to be seeking these grants. I guess my question, when I read through the materials, somehow it sounded familiar to me. I'm not sure if that's because I'm remembering from when I read the communication or if it's something we've applied for in the past. And I guess my question is, have we applied for this in the past, and what do you think our likelihood of us receiving the grant is this time around? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I don't think we've applied for this specific grant for this property in the past. I know there's been a lot of state money invested into the property through DECD Brownfield grants. So Helen Rosenberg may have been before you for this property on some of the cleanup grants. And actually, I think she has a simultaneous grant process going. Maya, you may be more familiar with that, with the timing of that. So I'm sure this property sounds familiar. It's come before you. That whole district, you know, the city's been, economic development has been working on it for many years and, you know, slowly cleaning it up as as grants became available.
Thank you for that. I guess just my follow-up question was, do you have any sense of the likelihood that we'll receive these grants? I don't have a sense of how competitive they are.
They were recommended to us by SHPO, and we've been working with SHPO very closely on this project. We've been meeting with them almost weekly to try and they've already devoted some resources to a cost estimate. So we're hopeful. I can't say, we haven't heard definitively, but we are hopeful.
No, great. That's helpful context. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Alder Roth. Alder Winter, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Woods, you mentioned that this was a really challenging site. Is that why you chose it, or why this site and why not another site for an adaptive reuse study?
This particular site is really because it's very vulnerable right now. And, you know, if nothing is done, we're just going to lose it. It's also a city asset. So we have, you know, there's, it's easier, you know, to try and do some work on city property rather than, you know, there's other historic properties that might belong to, you know, a private entity. But this one it's the most at risk, I think, in the city in terms of our historic resources. So we just thought it was worthwhile to, you know, if we don't do this now, it will just be lost. So that was really the driving, you know, the motivation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Winter. Alder Singh, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions at this time.
Great, thank you. You mentioned that it could be lost. What happens if it is too far in and it is lost? What does the city do with this type of property at that point?
At that point, it would probably be, you know, selectively demolished. So that's one of the options that we're looking at. If we go that route, you know, we may be able to save one of the buildings, but we would lose the historic listing for the entire district. So that would take away economic opportunities for other property owners in that area.
Wow, that's actually interesting. So if we let this go and that happens, it actually may hurt versus help. I
mean, there would be an opportunity lost for other property owners, for some of the other historic buildings. And
thank you for that. Are there any other questions from committee members at this time? If there are, just raise your hand because I can see you. Any follow-up questions? Okay, I'm just going to open it up to the public to see if there is anyone that will like to speak on behalf of items number 2 and 3. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify regarding items 2 and 3? Anyone from the public that would like to testify on items 2 and 3? And for a third time, anyone from the public that would like to testify on items 2, 3? Okay, we'll move on now to item number 4. And the floor is yours.
Great. And item number 4, which is the VCI grant. Keith, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure. So this is an application for funding to determine the adaptive reuses of the Strong School building on 69 Grand Avenue. Uses that are both economically feasible and also in line with the goals of the community. The vision that the community holds, and we certainly share, is the conversion of this building into something that can transform it into a sort of a financial and cultural anchor for the surrounding neighborhood. And we at City Plan are also hoping that this process will allow us to develop an adaptive reuse model that we could apply to other historic buildings in the same condition. This effort is something of a restart of a community planning process that you may know has been underway in Fairhaven in this district since 2018, I believe, and the residents of that community very much see this strong school revitalization as something that can anchor the economic development of the entire district, as they call it, from on Grand Avenue, from Atwater all the way over to Quinnipiac Avenue, including the Grand Avenue Bridge. So we are thinking that this feasibility study will generate a report that will allow us to market this building to a developer who can develop it privately in ways that are in line with the community's preferences.
Madam Chair, I just want to clarify, and Director Woods, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Director Woods was speaking about items 2, 3, and 4, and Mr. Lawrence was just speaking about number 5.
Yes, I was just going to call
Sorry
that out. So we're actually on item number 5 for the committee members regarding the Strong School.
Thank you, Ms. D. Sorry, I messed the number up.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Yes, this is something that has been on the block or around the block a few times, actually. So I guess question, I'll open it up to my committee, but what has changed this time around? That it's back on the table. I mean, it's gone through developers, which was not the right fit. It's gone through community involvement where they also had ideas for it and that didn't pan through. So what is different now about this project?
I'll speak to the timing of the grant a little bit. So this particular grant item is a grant offered by Preservation Connecticut, which is a nonprofit. It's a little bit different than the state grant. They were looking for an innovative community planning process that led to that had a preservation focus and had a preservation component to it. So they sort of helped us select this grant. At the same time, there was some renewed interest from the community group to work with the city to kind of do a reset and really start a collaborative process. So I think that's really what brought us to where we are today. And I think what will be different about this is we are really, as Keith mentioned, we're working very directly with community groups to, they helped actually write the grant proposal. We will write the RFP together or do this planning process together. And so we think that the outcome will be much more successful than last time because we'll be on the same page, I think, with the community. I also just want to mention for the record, this is a collaborative process with LCI. So Keith and Arlevia Samuels have been leading this.
Okay, thank you for that clarification and where this project is heading now, or may head. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. Alder DeCola, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Alder Antunes, any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You actually asked my question, and I know that actually the first time I was Alder from 2014 to 2015, I was on some committee that was part of a group reviewing the Strong School proposal. So it's good to hear that there is, and then I know it had a second iteration, that there's a new approach, because obviously it would be great to find a solution to activate it. So, but again, you asked my question. Thank you.
Alder Winter.
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Alder Singh.
No question, Madam Chair.
Okay. I will open it up. Anyone from City Plan that would like to add anything at this time? Okay. So at this time, I will ask if there's any questions from the public on this item. Again, it's item number 5 regarding the Strong School. Anyone from the public that would like to testify? Anyone from the public that would like to testify, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item number 6. And this is authorizing the mayor to apply for a grant for urban green and community garden initiatives. So go ahead.
Great, thank you. So I just want to acknowledge this is also done in collaboration with our city engineer. This is a project that is a component of the Mill River Trail that has really been led by our partners, Save the Sound. So in this case, the city is applying on their behalf to this deep grant because it is, you know, the grant is available to cities, but it will be for their project at the, it's at the base of Exchange Street. There's right next to John Martinez School. They received prior funding to do a design for a stormwater parklet. So there's an abandoned piece of city street that's mostly a dumping ground right now at the edge of the soccer field at Martinez School. And so it will be turned into a stormwater park and, you know, be planted and be beautiful. And this is actually would be funding for implementation of that. So they had some prior grants that led them up to, got them through detailed design. And now this would, you know, bring it home by allowing them to do the implementation, the construction piece.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think it's exciting that there is ongoing projects for the Mill River Trail. It's great, especially now to get people out and exercising. I will open it up to my colleagues for any questions. Alder DeCola.
No questions at this time.
Alder Antunes.
No questions, thank you.
Alder Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions.
Alder Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Alder Singh.
No question, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no questions from the committee, then we will move on and see if there's any testimony from the public. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on behalf of this item, please raise your hand. If there is anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. And for a third time, anyone from the public that would like to testify, please raise your hand.
I move to close the public section.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Everyone in favor of closing the public portion of this meeting? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? I'm an aye as well, so it is confirmed. We will close the public portion.
I move item 1.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item number 1?
Madam Chair, this is Alder
Yeah.
Saldicola. I think this is a great thing for the city. This is recurring funding for this project, our program. So I think we should vote favorable for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on item number 1? Okay, I don't see any further discussion. At this time, we will vote. If everyone is in favor of this item, please say yes. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. We'll move on to item number 2.
Madam Chair, I think we can move item 2 through 6 because they're all grants and they're all non-matching. And so they're all for the benefit of New Haven.
Second.
Okay, the items have been moved and seconded. My only question is, should we move them separately because they are separate grants?
No,
Or
Madam
does it
Chair.
matter?
No, it doesn't matter, Madam Chair.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you for that. So,
Madam
again-
Chair, point of order.
yes,
If that's any part of a question, then we can just do roll call vote. And if we run into a problem, we can make a change then.
thank you, Alder Antunes. Okay, at this time, we will vote for items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I will ask for a roll call on this vote. So just be prepared to unmute. If everyone is in favor of items 2 through 6, please say yay. Alder DeCola,
Yay.
Alder Antunes,
Yay.
Alder Roth,
Yes.
Alder Winter,
Yay.
Alder Singh,
Yeah.
and I'm also a yay.
Alder
Any,
has joined you, Madam Chair.
oh, good evening, Alder Smith. Any opposed?
Alder Smith appears to want to.
Alder Smith. Would you like to vote? Or abstain? Or nay? You're on mute. Alder Smith, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
My vote is yay. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm a yay as well. The yays have it. Motion carries for those items. Are there, oh, I didn't do a discussion. Did I? I didn't. Well, we voted, but I think these are all positive in any way. Anywhere we could get money for these projects is always a positive, especially if it doesn't affect the city financially. Do I hear a motion to,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
okay? Everyone in favor of adjournment, say yay, starting with Alder DeCola,
Yay.
Antunes,
Yes.
Roth,
Yes.
Winter,
Yay.
Singh,
Yay.
Smith,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as
Yes.
well. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for your patience.
Thank you.
Once again, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
Thanks, Steve.